Cowboys Nation, the 2025 season is upon us, and so is the return of Cowboys Update on the Dallas Cowboys Now app. I'm your host, Kyle Youmans, where every week we will outline the biggest storylines and the biggest news surrounding your Dallas Cowboys and tell you what matters the most and what needs to happen moving forward. And let's start things off with the biggest storyline of all. The Cowboys are back. They'll be on Thursday Night Football this week against the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's the beginning of the Brian Schottenheimer era as head coach in Dallas, and he said he doesn't want to get too amped up about this first opportunity.
You know, I think here's the way I view this, and it's funny, I actually caught myself doing this the other day, our bonus Monday. I kind of called the team up, and I kind of got a little fiery and excited about, playing the Eagles and, prime time and all that stuff. And I went to bed that night. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know better than that. Because honestly, the way we approach things, Todd, is every game we play is just another championship opportunity. It's just another championship opportunity. We get a chance to go out there against the Eagles. You don't get extra credit for beating the Eagles in Philly on primetime than you do for beating the Giants at noon in AT&T Stadium. So what I don't want these guys to do, and I think the coaches are a big part of this, is go in there and try so hard. Oh, we're playing the Eagles. I'm going to do so hard. They're going to make mistakes if they do that. Play free. It's football. Fly around. Love being around with your brothers, man. Just run to the football. Celebrate. Have fun. And so, again, it's going to be pretty consistent throughout the course of the deal. We're guaranteed 17 of these. This is the first one of that. I think our guys will play well. But again, that's kind of going to be my message most weeks.
Coach Schottenheimer begins his journey as the head coach. Doesn't have any ramp up going into that Thursday Night Football matchup against the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. He was hired earlier this offseason, had a refreshing offseason with a couple of additions, a fun draft class, great OTA and mini camps, and then finally went into training camp without one of his best players in Micah Parsons. He weathered the storm through that, and I know Coach Schottenheimer is excited to get back to football. Speaking of being without one of his best players, he will be without him for the remainder of his tenure as Micah Parsons was traded to the Green Bay Packers earlier this week. Kenny Clark in return with a couple of first-round picks in 2026 and 2027. Micah Parsons goes on to sign a $188 million deal with the Green Bay Packers, 136 of that guaranteed. Parsons, who was in a contract negotiation throughout the summer with Jerry Jones and the entire Cowboys front office, wasn't able to get a deal done. His agent was then allowed to go and negotiate with other teams, and then pending the signing of a new extension with Green Bay, the deal had been agreed upon. So the Cowboys ship an all-pro edge rusher, get a Pro Bowl, three-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle back. Kenny Clark arriving in Dallas earlier this week. He's made Pro Bowls every other year since 2019, which means in 2025, could he be in store for a Pro Bowl season? Automatically one of the top interior defensive linemen that the Cowboys have had in quite some time. He's going to challenge guys like Mozzie Smith, Perrion Winfrey that are deeper down the depth chart at that position. Not to mention he can add a lot in the interior of that defensive line with a guy like Osa Odigizua playing next to him. Because of the trade and because of the salary cap that it saves, instead of paying Micah Parsons $47 million a year, gives the Cowboys an opportunity to sign some guys to extension. They did so earlier this week by signing All-Pro defensive back DaRon Bland to an extension. Of course, Bland burst onto the scene his second year in the NFL when he had 9 interceptions, 5 of those returned for a touchdown in that 23 campaign, tying an NFL record for most defensive touchdowns by an individual in a single season. He will be around Dallas until at least 2029. And this happened before the Micah Parsons trade, but it's something to note that happened this preseason. In case you missed it, Jake Ferguson also signs a 4-year extension that will keep him around until the 2029 season. Former Pro Bowl tight end, had a great season that 2023 campaign as well. Was in and out of the lineup due to injury in 2024, but he's expected to return and have a big year for the Cowboys in this current offensive system. Becomes the 8th highest paid tight end in the NFL. He had just 59 receptions last year, but was one of Dak Prescott's top targets during that 12-5 campaign back in 2025. Speaking of newcomers and speaking of high expectations, Matt Eberflus has plenty of expectations around this defense, even with having to replace Micah Parsons and his production on that side.
Yeah, it's we're going to focus on us and focus on how we do that. Obviously, a really good player, and we have a lot of good rushers, in that room, in the D-line room, and certainly we'll generate it with that and other things too.
What does Clark bring to your team?
First of all, he's a true pro. He's a worker, and he's been a leader. He's been a leader over there in Green Bay, and he's going to be a leader here too, and you can see that right away. Knows ball, really intelligent, and excited to work with him. He works great on the practice field, and he's a tremendous guy.
Matt Eberflus excited to see his guys out there on Thursday. Could see a couple more guys as well. Both Tyler Guyton and Trayvon Diggs return to practice. Guyton was probably the bigger question mark. He sustained an injury in training camp, was expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, but as a full participant in practice, it's possible that he could be ready to go as the starting left tackle coming up on Thursday. Trayvon Diggs returned to practice. He is still questionable going into that matchup against the Eagles. Let's hear from Clayton Adams on how he's excited to watch either Tyler Guyton, but also his potential replacement in Nate Thomas.
A few weeks ago, you're never excited about having injuries, but there are a few players on the roster that when somebody's going to miss some time, in the back of your mind, you're going, I'm excited to watch that guy. He's one of those guys for me. Whenever it is that he gets his opportunity, I feel pretty good about what he's going to do, from a talent perspective and from a competitive perspective.
So whether it's Tyler Guyton or Nate Thomas, Clayton Adams, as the offensive coordinator in Dallas, feels confident about what his offensive line can do. Well, he'll need some of that confidence going up against one of the best attacks defensively that the NFL has seen. You take a look at the all-time series between the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Eagles have won 3 of 5, including a sweep in 2023 where they boasted a number 1 rushing offense led by Saquon Barkley, who had nearly 2,000 yards rushing. And then you turn around, he had the number 1 defense in the NFL. That's the first team to lead the NFL in rushing and total defense since the 1992 Cowboys, which of course went on to repeat as Super Bowl champions in 1993. They return a lot of those core pieces like Jalen Hurts, like Saquon Barkley, Nick Sirianni in the fold after winning Super Bowl 59 against the Chiefs in dominant fashion this past February. They have the ability to go and repeat as champions. They were 4-0 under Nick Sirianni in Week 1 during his tenure as head coach in Philadelphia, and he had 37 points per game put up against Dallas last year in these matchups between two NFC East rivals. One thing to note, though, Dak Prescott was not available during those matchups with the Eagles last season. This is only the 4th time that Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott will actually play against each other, one head-to-head between the two. Only the 4th time ever. Dak has won 2 of those 3 matchups as well throughout his campaign. So it should be an interesting one. Thursday Night Football, Cowboys, Eagles coming up on Thursday. My key to win the game for the Cowboys, it's an easier said than done one. You got to win in the trenches. You got to have some success on the offensive line, have some success rushing the passer. Even without Micah Parsons, you have to find a push up front, and you have to solidify the run defense as well against a guy like Saquon Barkley, who was the best in the NFL at running the football last year. It is a tough task for Brian Schottenheimer and his Cowboys. Should be a fun one. Thursday Night Football, 7:20 kickoff on NBC. But until then, be sure to download the Dallas Cowboys Now app. You have plenty of podcasts, shows, and extra content to keep in mind. Here is the podcast schedule for the 2025 seasons. Of course, all these times are indeed subject to change, and check the website dallascowboys.com for any questions surrounding what shows are available. This gets started back in Week 1. That's Cowboys Pregame Live presented by WinStar World Casino and Resorts. Isaiah Stanback, Barry Church, Nate Newton, myself, and a whole cast and crew of DallasCowboys.com analysts bring you all the way up to kickoff on NBC. Join us at 6 p.m. Central Time from right here at the Star in Frisco. It's just the first of many. Cowboys Update is back. Dallas Cowboys football is back. We'll see you next week. I'm Kyle Youmans.